Good day, everybody. Thank you for joining me on the channel. In today's content, we will be analyzing Quant. The ticker is QNT, and it looks like this project is building a massive multi-year symmetrical triangle, patiently waiting for its breakout. Today, we're going to be analyzing some future targets and potential plays. Nothing that I say is financial advice. Let's dive into the content. So heading over to the monthly time frame for Quant, we have the all-time high back here at $430 roughly. And then this is the current cycle low, which was back in June of 2022, which brought Quant back to $40. So at the moment, Quant is trying to get from this low of June 2022 and is trying to retrace back to the all-time high of September 2021. Now, you can see it's been a bit of a rough trajectory, but we do have this multi-year descending resistance and this multi-year ascending support. We're literally caught between a rock and a hard place at the moment, awaiting for a breakout. Now, there are several indicators that I wanted to look at today for Quant. I do have the stock RSI on here, which at the moment, unless Quant can sort of take out $132 to $174 in the coming weeks, at the moment we have these lower highs going off of these wick highs right here in the price, and in the stock RSI we do have these sort of higher highs. Okay, so there is a bit of a bearish divergence at the moment. Higher highs in the stock RSI, lower highs in the price, and you can see that the stock RSI has recently tapped levels of 95, of which was similar to what we did in October 2022 when we was back at this resistance point on this symmetrical triangle. So fast forward from sort of 2022 when we was at resistance on the triangle here, all the way to where we are now in July 2025, you can see we're again at the triangle resistance and back at levels of 95 in the stock RSI. So there is a bit of a bearish divergence here. We are on the monthly at these sort of higher overbought levels in the RSI, but nonetheless, I think what we're looking at, okay, exactly is we've got the 050 and the 0618 that we essentially need to break to start pushing to the all-time highs. You can see we've got multiple sort of points of contact on both of these Fibonacci levels from in the past. You can see the 050. Once again, we came up to the 050 last month at $132. Multiple months before throughout 2023 into 2024. You can see we've just been hovering around this sort of range. This is the key block that we need to see Quant break in order to start pushing up to these higher targets. Okay, now I do think that we are just sort of getting really compressed into a corner here, and you can see we're getting really tight, and eventually I think a decision will come where we either break to the upside or get this break to the downside and retrace back to this sort of $40 low. Now at the moment, considering the certain market conditions, I think that September historically is generally quite rocky for the market. Could it be different this time? 100%. Okay, 100%. But with these sort of signals at the moment and the fact we're back at multi-year descending resistance, this could point that we're about to come in for a bit more of a correction, potentially back down to this ascending support before then actually getting a very impulsive breakout. We do have this yellow line right here, which is the 20 EMA on the monthly as support at the moment, and that currently sits at $98. So $98 at the moment is a key level of support. If we can sort of run into resistance, hold this level of support, get really compressed under the EMA and resistance and get a break, that would be fantastic going into sort of September. That would be brilliant, and it would invalidate the fact that we could potentially come back one more time before actually getting the initial breakout. Now, it's also worth noting that although we do have these higher highs and lower highs in price and higher highs in stock RSI, you know, at some levels stock RSIs can hover about in these sort of overbought levels. And again, if we do hold this 20 as support and start breaking out, this is where we could see the continuation higher here, pushing towards these sort of 0618 resistance points that we need to break. And again, the stock RSI can stay at these overbought levels. There's a possibility of that as well. But solely speaking, I think that it's important to get a fib on from this local high, going back to this low from sort of April, and look at a key levels of support here that potentially could hold on this retracement. So one that's very interesting, again, ties up with this. You can see the 20 EMA right here, okay, the yellow line. You've got the 0382, which also sits at $98, and that's kind of very close with this 20-month EMA. So that could be a very good place to see some sort of relief. And again, if we do start tackling out of this descending resistance and essentially breaking $132, I think that's the sort of go sign to push to 174. And then once that's cleared, you're looking back to the all-time high. So the key sort of levels I would look for on a retracement, if this isn't the time to actually break out, and we could get some further opportunity here, is between $98 to $81. I think throughout September, if we see Quant come back to these sort of levels, this is going to be maximum opportunity in my opinion. Now, again, I have said that obviously we have this multi-year ascending support below, where we had support back in November 2024, April 2025, and potentially we could come back to that later in Q4. But to actually get there, we need to lose all of these fib levels as support, which could act as areas where we do see a bounce or get that break without actually coming back to this multi-year ascending support line. So it's all about holding 98 to 81. Now, when we do actually get this breakout, in my honest opinion, I am in favor of this multi-year sort of structure breaking out to the upside. I think there's been fantastic news on Quant. There's so much bullish perspectives from fundamental. Obviously, I'm a technical analyst, so I'm here to show you the data on the charts, but I do keep up with Quant a little bit on X, and there's a lot going on. It's been a project that's building in the shadows, and I think that this sort of consolidation period is going to lead to a massive euphoric break. Now, once $174 is broken, and we do see this potential breakout of this symmetrical triangle, there is a breakout target that I'm actually looking for. Now, this is towards $814. So hear me out. We have the neckline of resistance. We go back down to the level of support on the triangle. And once we actually do get this breakout, wherever it is along this line, I do think that at some point it will get the break. You can see that once we do clear that resistance, the actual breakout target brings Quant from this multi-year symmetrical triangle up to its 1272 Fibonacci extension, going from the $40 low of 2022, retracing back to the all-time high. If the all-time high is cleared, this is the target, $814. And we're looking at, from current prices on Quant, that being a sort of 6 to 7x. But it's worth noting that if we do get that opportunistic pullback sort of coming back towards $85 maybe in October, that then would increase this move and make it a potential 8 to 9x. Now, again, that is potentially a conservative target once this target's met. Again, if it does come into fruition, pushing into sort of late Q4, early Q1 2026, we could see a pullback and then get an even further sort of blow off top here. Again, the 1272 would be the target I'm actually looking for now, considering how long it's actually taking to get this actual breakout. We have to consider that when we do get a sort of peak season, if one is to arrive, it's not going to last very long. However, the moves are normally very impulsive. Now, Quant being a larger market cap could start to pick up and take off relatively soon in comparison to some smaller caps, which may take off a little bit later during the cycle. And that being the case, if Quant does break $814, it could also push up to that 1414 at 1,137. And that, from current prices, is a move of roughly around a 10x. And I think that, again, with the size of Quant is pulling this move off after consolidating for so many years in the symmetrical triangle, at the moment we're above the monthly 20 EMA support. If that can hold at $98 and we break the descending resistance and start clearing the golden ratio, then I think the all-time high is on the cards in Q4, and these are the targets for euphoria for me pushing towards the end of this cycle. And I think that what we would have here at this point is potentially some sort of channel that would be building for Quant, where you've got this level of support. This was the, let me get that one again. You've got this level of support. This is the all-time high. You've come back for support here, and now you're pushing up to the level of resistance on the channel, and then you come back down again for another bear market, go back up for another bull market. But you could see that gradually, potentially, we could create this channel. And if we do actually get the break of the descending resistance, if we look at it here, for example, it looks pretty obvious, doesn't it? Again, you've got this ascending support line, which has been holding for a couple of years. You've got this multi-year descending resistance. If this resistance is cleared, then the pathway back up to sort of $800 and tapping this multi-year potential ascending resistance line that could be created, then that would be potentially the local top for me of this cycle for Quant. So at the end of the day, guys, I'm looking for around $800 to $1,000 Quant. We could have a rocky period coming into September, early October, where we pull back to a key level of support. I did give you those fib support targets earlier in the video, and you also have the monthly 20 EMA, which is currently acting as support as well at $98. So ideally 98 to sort of low $80. If we can get that low in and pull back as deep as that, maybe I'm asking too much. It would be a great opportunity. Failing to get that much of a pullback, the 20 could hold at 98, and we could start the trajectory back to $130 to $170 before getting the break to the all-time high and beyond. I hope you've enjoyed the content from Chart Nerd TA. Take care. Peace out.